Hi there, and welcome to Gray Muzzle Geekery for the week of April 22nd, 2019. I'm your host, Dusty Red, and with me as always,
Dusty White.
And we'll get right into this week's news. Per the Washington Post, Wizards of the Coast has sold more copies this year of Dungeons & Dragons than they ever have, with this year raking in over $31 million in print and $1.6 million in ebooks.
Kingdom Hearts 3 Critical Mode update launches April 23rd.
Pokemon Go is set to have their Shiny Meltdown event this week from April 24th to May 5th.
Vans, the sneaker company, is collaborating with Harry Potter on a new collection.
And Castlevania Anniversary Collection is slated for release on May 16th for the PC, PS4, Xbox One, and the Nintendo Switch for only $20. The titles include Castlevania, Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse, Super Castlevania 4, Castlevania The Adventure, Castlevania 2 Belmont's Revenge, you know, they did the whole Castlevania 2 some other episode, and Castlevania 2 again, Castlevania Bloodlines, and titles only released out in Japan, Kid Dracula, along with a bonus ebook.
Rob Thomas releases Chip to Smile April 25th. One of my personal favorites.
I can relate to the Chip Tooth Smile thing, too. And that concludes the news. And now we're going to go right into a new segment we want to call The Geek Battle Cry. So first we want to start off with our Patreon shout-outs. So we want to give a big thank you to Clay and Ryan for supporting us, as well as a new Patreon member, Donna, who is actually my mom. So it's been 30 years, but thanks for giving me an allowance again. Woo!
Yay! And another shout out goes out to The Geek Awakens podcast. They checked us out, they interviewed us, and they put a portion of that interview onto their podcast. So if you want to hear that, check them out. Again, The Geek Awakens podcast on Podbean.
And finally, give another shout out to Loaded Dice Adventures, ran by Pat, who's an old LARP friend of ours, an old friend of mine, who has his Twitch stream of their D&D session, 5th edition, airs every Monday at 7:30 Eastern. And they have a fun little chat game that you could do as well, as where you could, for every couple minutes you watch, you earn gold. And you could actually take that gold and use it to influence people's dice rolls by allowing people to re-roll and all sorts of fun things.
Oh, that's kind of like the charity event.
Kind of like charity.
That's awesome.
So, and I'm particularly happy that I just won a bottle opener from one of their guys who auctioned it off, and I won it because, yay.
Woo!
It's really nice. It's actually emerald green. So we will go right into this.
Smooth.
Sure. So we'll go right into this week's topics. So, Dusty, you were making the mention of comic books and other such things. However, before we get into that, I want to allude to something that we talked about as well, being the 20-year story.
Yeah, you're old. Get to it.
Okay. So it's a little weird and the build-up is there, and I can say, unfortunately, the outcome isn't as fun as I hoped. But in, April 15th, 1999, I was in my math class.
Okay.
And a piece of our ceiling tile fell onto the floor and cracked. Well,
Lawsuit.
It didn't hit anybody. Calm down. Well, my math teacher was a little eccentric. And he thought it would be interesting. He kind of reminds me of, he looks like Beck, the artist Beck, the musician.
Okay, so he looks like he smells. Got it.
Anyway, let's be nice here. We're positive. We're a positive podcast here, all right? Positivity. This is the Positive Podcast Palace.
Okay.
So, and the Congress has already cut up. See? You're stressing me out, lady. You're stressing me out. So, a piece of ceiling tile falls, and he gets the idea that he's going to break it into a number of students that were present. And I think there was 26 or 27 students in the classroom. So he broke the tile into 20-something pieces and gave each student a piece and made the joke, half serious, not really, of, we'll meet back here in 20 years with the piece of ceiling tile. Well, for whatever reason, through all of my life's adventures, from moving to a variety of states and relationships that weren't as successful,
began and then ended,
just as abruptly in some cases, I managed to keep this piece of ceiling tile. Well, it just so happened through all sorts of serendipitous events that I find out that my teacher still taught at that school, that I happened to have that day off because of recovery from the convention.
Right.
And that I can go to the school and say hi to whoever was still there.
Like, what the hell? Sure.
I would have to lose. And I think you said it best, too, of I could have not done it, but if I would have not done it, I would have just been wondering what happened.
Right.
So I went, signed in, and found out that my old senior wrestling, well, he was a senior, I was a freshman. He was the heavyweight wrestler.
Okay.
I learned early on to make friends with the barbarian in the group. Like, halfling guy, make friends with barbarian.
Right.
We good. He is now the dean of students at that school.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, okay, this is pretty awesome. Found out that my old wrestling competitor, I guess, he was with me in the super ultra lightweight.
Nemesis?
I wouldn't say nemesis. He whooped my butt pretty handedly. Like,
okay.
He was a grade school wrestler and wrestled all through grade school into high school. I happened to get into wrestling in high school when I more or less got into a fight with a kid. Went into the dean's office, got called by the dean to go to mop the wrestling mats, and found out that the dean was the wrestling coach. And he was like, hey, I need a lightweight. Get your butt over here. So, yeah, I broke a kid's nose and became a wrestler. Like, that's a story for another time.
I feel like your dean now suddenly has the nickname of Mr. Miyagi. There's
no waxing on, but I ain't gonna make... There's an easy wax-off joke, too, I'm not making. So anyway, I'm at the school, go up and see my old teacher, and I guess this is where, like, I was really kind of excited to be like, maybe he's got a map to the Goonies treasure, and maybe there's, like, he's got a Snickers for me or something.
He's got a last will and testament that if somebody shows up, and that'll be the one that I write my fortune, my man-made fortune off to.
Absolutely. Well, he actually won a lottery, I do believe, at some point. So he didn't he didn't win enough to, like, I could live on a remote island and scheme evil plans forever. But he didn't make enough to be like, I don't need to work.
But I'm gonna.
But this makes life a little bit easier having, like, I don't know, a steady job rather than just living off a residual, so to speak.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure he's an intelligent guy. He's a mathematician. So he would probably go insane if he sat around all day and just, like, made tally marks in his bedroom or something. So I saw him and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And cool, we had a small chat and it was like, okay, bye. And I'm like,
But you told him why you were there,
I told him, I was like, hey, I have the thing from 20 years ago. And he mentioned that another kid from also mentioned to him, like saw him and was like, hey, and mentioned the thing to him, but didn't see him on that day. That sounded like a week or two prior.
Okay.
But other than that, nobody brought him the piece of tile. And I'm like, okay. And it was just definitely one of those, like, cool, good to see ya. It's been forever. Bye.
Right.
So I went, all right. So I started to walk around the school, see what the changes they did. Obviously, since then, it went from an all-boys Catholic school to a co-ed school, which is really weird. Like, yay, I'm happy for it. Like, I do believe that you will get a better education having a co-ed school.
Right.
There's obvious, air quote, distractions there, but some purist, prudish, like, no, you need social interaction. You need to understand social boundaries and being able to interact with the other species. Hey, women are species unto themselves. But to be able to deal with other genders and deal with different kind of situations, I do believe that there is having just a straight up
well-roundedness is what you're looking for.
Yes, there's definitely a well-roundedness that comes from having co-ed schools and such. I did not have that experience, which could explain why I'm still awkward to this age. But we'll continue from there. Anyway, so I did end up seeing my world religion teacher, who was pretty cool, because he was somebody that got me into more, like, theology than just, like, you're a Catholic, you're going to learn Catholic. He was like, hey, there's these other religions, like, go study them. So he was really cool, and we sat and talked with him for, like, 20 minutes. Got to see the school kind of updated. They cleaned up the field that used to be full of glass, and they laid sod over it now, so there's, like, not as much glass.
Okay.
And that was it. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go get me a beer and some buffalo wings. And yeah, so I wanted to make more of a story. And I'm sure if I work at it, I can make a story out of the situation. But it's definitely one of those weird, could have been. At the same time, nothing exciting happened from it.
Right.
But at the same time, I do agree. I probably would have regretted it if I didn't go. If I didn't go and like...
I don't have a experience for like a tile piece or being like, hey, let's meet back here in 20 years. But I still go home every once in a while and still drive past my old high school, even my old like elementary school, red bricked, like has been there since the 1940s, middle of hometown Springfield, Illinois. There's nostalgic to it. Like we talk about it on the podcast all the time, but it's all levels of nostalgia. And I think you would have regretted it had you never not gone, because who would have known that like 6 people would have showed up and had like a powwow and they would have been best friends since then or whatever. I'm just saying.
Like I'm Joshua Jackson over here with the skull ring or something.
And the next, NBC primetime series, floor tile ceiling thing. I don't know.
That sounds more like a Lifetime movie, but anyway.
Nostalgia is a thing. And I mean, even just recently catching up with Mitch on the Geek Awakens was I went to high school and with him and we did drama club and we had many tech weeks spending time together and hanging out. And there's a level of stories that come with that. And you're like, oh man, don't call me out. Don't tell those stories. But yeah, I'm glad you went, and I'm glad you were able to at least share the story.
Like I said, it was interesting and fun. Going back to Mitch, it'd be cool if we could get him to come up here. And I'm very curious, because I think the two of you together would be an interesting interview from my point of view, because you guys do come from a smaller town.
Right.
So it does have almost a Stranger Things vibe to it. Like, in a sense of...
Very much so.
In a sense of, it is the stereotypical, like, D&D and, like, role-playing games and all that other stuff. It is definitely more... hidden and kept quiet, and I don't know if you had to deal with any parental backlashes or anything. Like, jokes aside, did they like, you're playing the devil's game or we're gonna burn books or anything else like that? Like, did you
really only the only thing I ever had to deal with was my mom definitely didn't understand when I started LARPing, and obviously it was like over the age of 18 by that point, so she really couldn't say anything. But I know we've got weird looks when I sat at a table and played card games with all of my friends all through high school. Like
playing card games or like Magic the Gathering?
No, not Magic the Gathering, but like just playing card games, and we played dice games and stuff like that. And we had lunch times with half the school, and then the other half of the school did the other lunch hour. Sure. And it just, you got to get known as, oh, that's the weird table of the drama kids in the back of the cafeteria that play card games and
at break, right?
Right. So there was definitely some more, not necessarily acceptance of it, but we weren't also, like, we weren't picked on either.
Okay, that's fair.
So, I mean, it's one of those things where there was definitely more people that were picked on for different things, but at my school, we really weren't messed around with.
I'm very curious to see some of that and how much of, where is that cutoff? What shifted?
Ironically, though, thinking about it, Mitch and I would probably, if I were to go back to my high school, the one teacher that I would love to see is our drama school teacher, who also was our newspaper teacher. And I actually follow her on Facebook. We're Facebook friends, ironically.
Nice.
So it's just one of those teachers that had an impact, and I would go with Mitch. I think we would both go on the same page of saying that she definitely had an impact on us pursuing the things that we had passion for.
Okay, interesting. I mean, it's good. Everybody usually has that teacher, or has that like instructor, or that individual that drops some sort of knowledge bomb in your teenage brain going, I know everything, I know the world, and they come up and go like, blah, and you're like, I know nothing.
Right?
Holy crap. So yeah, everybody has that role model, has that one teacher, and so yeah, no, I get it, and yeah, no, it was fun. It was again, a nostalgia trip. It was cool to see the school. I normally don't get, I was happy to get out of high school and be like, I'm done, I'm never looking back,
right.
Like, thank goodness. Like, I was a terrible student, I'll freely admit. It took a while for me to realize that the lessons I learned there were applicable in different ways.
Okay.
Like, scholastically, really didn't learn anything from there. I'll still admit, like, They did their best to teach me. I'm dense. I didn't learn. But life lessons I've learned from there, I will give it that. Again, that's why we wore shirt and ties and everything else. So I learned. See, you got the kind of
I do too.
So it's just different kind of lessons from different environments, and it was just neat to go back and look and just see some people I went to school with still there, either teaching or being in some sort of not just academic role, but help me out here, the word office
Mentor
staff, or office staff themselves or something. Like they have some involvement in the school still years afterwards.
See, and I remember when I went to school, I actually had a period, a class period that I was a office assistant, and I remember students always coming by, or old students always coming by and being like, hey, I'm gonna walk around the school, and not having a big issue. But you ran into, like, obviously for reasons of society now, that they didn't let people into your school at a certain time.
Yeah,
period.
I was the time on the ceiling tile did say that to meet up at 12:45, but when I called, they would not allow me to walk to school at school hours, to which I realized, oh yeah, that could be seen as something negative nowadays.
Right.
Like I was in school during the Columbine.
Yeah, so was I.
So
I started college, or started high school right into that.
and I was finishing, give or take. And yeah, like I wore a trench coat to school, not because I'm trying to be edgy or anything else. I'm less than 100 pounds. And it's cold, and trench coats are warm. Like I was like, this is fashionable, and it's warm, and I got a hood, and I'm good. And it's like Columbine shooting, and I'm like, welp,
Right.
I need to find me a puffy jacket now.
Okay, so kind of to switch back to our topic that we...
The topic of the week.
Yeah, topic that we previewed here. I've been watching in sequential order for a specific reason Marvel movies for Endgame that's going to premiere this week.
Dun, dun, dun.
And I lucked out. Caleb was able to get tickets for the 9:15 show on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So I will happily get to see the movie without any spoilers. But I did want to kind of get into the fandom of it and see some of those movies in order, or like preferred order of what.
Not so much the release, but the way the events chronological
order.
the events that happened, not the way the movies were released.
Correct.
Okay.
And I've been teasing it on our page and on my Instagram as far as like the road to Endgame.
Yeah.
And
Coffee colored chocolate beans.
Coffee colored chocolate beans. And you actually kind of were able to join me on one of those as far as Infinity War, because you had not seen it, correct?
We talk about lapses in geekdom, and movies is absolutely my lapse in geekdom. I have seen a good chunk of the Marvel movies.
I was surprised when you actually listed them out, how many you had seen.
I have. You're like, you haven't seen any. I'm like, actually, I've seen this. But I think because I've seen all those, I got superheroed out pretty quick.
Okay.
Like, I was like, oh, look, the captain saved the day again. Like, at that point, it became less about the plot and less of the story, and just like, what's this week's cameo? So it really did become a who's cameoing in this movie or what's next. I mean, obviously, with Spider-Man making an appearance in Civil War,
right?
Like, that was a cameo. That was a big, like, teaser of, oh, crap, Sony finally released their... Because you got intellectual property arguments going on. If you want to go to the different nerd side of this whole ordeal. So, to see Sony relinquish control of Spider-Man, and for Spider-Man to make an appearance in the MCU, made people lose their mind to go, Spider-Man's here, yay!
Right, and now obviously you have Fox being owned by Disney,
which will now allow
way more crossovers.
Well, and that's a big reason why it was kind of weird now with the MCU as it is, because they couldn't use terms like mutant. Terms like mutant and even
enhanced.
Well, that's why I got weird with Guardians of the Galaxy having such a weird tie, because you're going to deal with Jean Grey and Cyclops and all that stuff. They have ties in with Guardians of the Galaxy and like space stuff. So there's a point where you have to like separate what you are allowed to use and what terms you could use. You can't use the word mutant.
Okay.
Any of the MCU movies beforehand were not allowed to use mutant because it was part of the Man Down, used by Fox. And anything that associated with accidents happen here at the podcast.
I don't even know what that was.
I don't know either. I'm betting it's like a sponge or something that fell, the suction cup thing or something. I don't know. At least the lights didn't go off this time.
That's true.
Anyway, yeah, with the way the rights and intellectual property works, it's just really bizarre. So seeing that, Marvel is going to get their mutant term and their X-Men and all of those characters back will be interesting to see when they decide to have those movies come out.
Okay. So to interject, real quickly, give me the top 3 of the ones that you have seen thus far.
Top 3 of the movies?
Yes.
I still think Iron Man 1 is their best.
Okay.
I think that was their boldest and their best because they were, first off, casting, hey, we need addictive personality, narcissistic, and just well-liked for no
good reason.
No good reason. Robert Downey Jr. nailed it.
It's Tony Stark.
Yeah, Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr., match made in heaven. You cannot, no, honestly, try to imagine Tony Stark
as anybody else but Robert Downey Jr. Right. I can't. We've talked about
Alec Baldwin as Tony Stark. No.
We've talked about actors that can't play anything else because they look like that person. Robert Downey Jr. is kind of the opposite himself, now. Yeah. He just is Tony Stark in whatever part he plays. So Iron Man 1.
So Iron Man 1, just because it is big, bold. It was definitely a good counter by Marvel to some of the DC movies and some of the other movies that were coming out. We're going to make superheroes. We're going to do stuff. Because, we forget, movies like Kick-Ass and other things also, are trying to be superhero movies. And Marvel's just we got an idea. We're making Iron Man, which isn't a terribly interesting character.
At the time, it wouldn't have been a popular comic. I mean, even the Avengers in general, when you look back into history and nostalgia, the Avengers, Captain America, Iron Man. Well, but keep in mind, though, comic book icons are usually your DC characters. Your Superman, your Batman.
We're going into a whole other argument here.
And this is my opinion. I'll preface it with that. This is my opinion. When you think of old school nostalgic comic book, for me, your comic book heroes are your Batman, your Superman, your Wonder Woman. It is very heavily DC driven.
Basically, it's
Marvel had Spider-Man. That was it.
It's Thing and gender appropriate pronoun, I guess.
Okay.
So Superman, Wonder Woman,
right?
Batman is
Spider-Man.
Well, Spider-Man was their big flagship, obviously. I mean, I agree. I think the popularity.
The only thing I knew on Marvel side of things that I enjoyed when I was growing up was X-Men, only because you had prevalent different types of story because it was group oriented.
Are we going down that road, or do you want me to finish my 3?
Okay, go ahead. Your 3.
Because I'm happy to go down this road.
No, go your 3.
All right, so I'll make it quick then.
So Iron Man.
All right, so I'll go Iron Man. I really, 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 really enjoyed Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Okay.
That was such a good movie.
Tom Holland does do a really good job.
If he could just shut his goddamn mouth. Good with spoilers, but
he well, yeah, okay. Uh-huh. But Tom Holland does a really good job of balancing Peter Parker and Spider-Man.
Well, then they also went with the younger Spider-Man. They went with the barely high school Spider-Man.
And it wasn't an origin story.
Yeah, I'm happy with it now. I think that's why I like it so much too. It wasn't another effing origin story. You could only do that so many times.
But how does he get his powers? How does he learn the responsibility?
Well, first off, let's
so done with that story.
He doesn't shoot webs out of his hands anyway. He built those damn things. I don't care what anybody says. He built those anyway. And I mean, I would go I want to. I would put Spider-Man: Homecoming number 3. Iron Man number 2.
Okay.
And Guardians number 1.
Okay.
Guardians of the Galaxy 1. I like 2. 2 did a really good job fleshing out why Peter Quill's worth anything.
Right.
But really 1 is where it's at.
You don't have any, personal love
for
a
absolutely
small furry
no
raccoon.
bias towards one of the most outlandish, but also kind of rewritten characters to make them fit. But yeah, the smart ass raccoon, no reason why I like it so much. You do not have no. I do, but in of itself, though, it's a great movie. And the fact that it's written with a soundtrack in mind helps.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I forgot what they were saying.
Marvel got good at that. I mean, that's a perfect example. They basically recreated that with Black Panther too.
Black Panther was really good. I got mixed feelings on it in some regards, but I think it was still a really good movie.
I would easily put Black Panther in my top 5. Guardian of the Galaxy for sure. 1 and 2. 2 was always a little bit questionable. Just again, it forces too many kind of Full House, hey, we hug at the end of the episode kind of things between family ties and Gamora and her sister. And then you also have obviously his I need to have a father figure in my life to make worth of myself.
Sure.
So there's a little bit of that. But the first one is definitely really, really well done. Thor Ragnarok is one of my favorites too.
I want to put that in there, and I do love Thor Ragnarok, but I think I love it for the fact of you want to talk about a movie that does not take itself seriously.
Right.
Like, everything else, a compared tone of Iron Man.
Right.
Which is pretty dark and grim. It is very much a survival story. It is very much a Pretty Boy gets everything. Pretty Boy loses everything. Pretty Boy has to now actually rely on his smarts. Like he made his millions. He made his billions even. Like he's set, partially from father's stuff as well.
Genius.
But now he has to go and do it himself and scrape out of that and deal with himself. So there's a lot on the line there. The tone is very dark. Even film, like cinematography wise, a lot of browns and grays and dark and stark contrast of blood with red. Stark, get it? Stark contrast of blood and stuff. Like, you're in a desert and there's a red streak. It's got that 300 vibe to it of, like, color, splash of color. You notice the blood more in a sandy background. Then you go to Thor Ragnarok, which straight up advertises itself as, like, an 80s trip. Where they're playing immigrant song from Led Zeppelin and, like...
For the love of God, you have your villain as... Jeff Goldblum, who obviously clearly doesn't take himself seriously as the villain, and the game master,
which is not a serious character too, which makes it all the more like. But in this situation, can you make that a serious movie? Would you try to make that a serious movie?
Oh God, no.
We're gonna have a god fight angry giant green man.
But, oh, wait, he still, at the end of the movie, has to fight his godlike sister.
Right. Like, there's just...
That he didn't know about less than 72 hours beforehand.
Right. So it's one of those cases of, like, they do a really good job. And I guess that's what we're going to talk about, of, like, between DC and Marvel, since we'll go on to that now. DC just hasn't nailed their tone. They haven't nailed the tone that they want to set with their movies. They've been trying to... go either too dark and serious or too dark and gritty. I mean, we can't put Dark Knight for DC, even though it is Dark Knight is DC, but it wasn't.
DC with Dark Knight and the Night, the Batman, and I'm blanking.
The Dark Knight Rises.
What's the trilogy? What's the Chris Nolan?
The first one's The Dark Knight.
Okay, Dark Knight.
And then, it's Dark Knight. Then that's the second one with Joker. Batman Returns.
No.
Oh my God. I am blanking hard. Hang on a second. I mean, let me just...
This is gonna get heavily edited.
No, it's not. 'Cause I'm gonna edit it. We are recording on Tuesday night. I am determined to make sure this is up every Wednesday. Look, I've been sick. I'm going to make the apology now. I've been sick all week.
We tried to record Friday. It just did not happen.
Okay. So what we're looking at is Batman Begins.
Right.
It was the first one. Then The Dark Knight Rises. No, it's The Dark Knight, then The Dark Knight Rises.
Okay, so that's the Christopher Nolan trilogy.
That's the Christopher Nolan trilogy.
Okay.
And even though that's DC, it was produced by Legendary Pictures. That's the big thing I wanted to do. It wasn't by DC Pictures or Marvel Studios or anything else. It was Legendary Pictures that did it. It was Nolan that did it with based off of the DC comic character. So it's different compared to DC's attempt at running, Suicide Squad and Justice League and
Right.
Aquaman and everything else. So it goes back to tone, like having a tone is just a really, really big deal. And it's something that Marvel seemed to have nailed.
Okay.
And really seem to focus on, and like, hey, Guardians of the Galaxy is going to be released on a very soundtrack vibe. It's going to have that, Peter Quill's, for someone who doesn't go to Earth often, apparently, has all of the Earth references ever.
Right.
But he is almost living his life in that soundtrack. The way they have it in the movies. He's living his life in the soundtrack. They have
what's left
Mr.
to him
Blue
from
Sky.
his mom.
Right, but Mr. Blue Sky opens off. And also, so they do a good job on picking these songs that fit. Like, you wouldn't think Mr. Blue Sky would be a fight song, like an intro credits fight song. But yet, watching Groot, little baby Groot do his dance and the fight going on in the background, it catches you immediately. But
Right.
I'm just sitting at the edge of my seat going, is this seriously how we're starting this damn movie? Like,
Right.
Yay. But it sets that tone of, like, we're going on a ride.
So
Very roller coaster.
I bring this up, or we bring this up to kind of like segue into a conversation that I've always been intrigued by because of the way the dichotomy has always existed between DC and Marvel. And obviously, guys, leave your comments and any questions or things that you would add to this conversation. But the dichotomy between DC and an actual comic, when you talk about actual written comics, not the movie universe, but comics or DC, has always been more good versus evil. And
Very tropish.
Yes, very tropish.
Well, and depending on the three ages that you're looking at.
Golden, silver, and bronze, right? Okay.
Your three ages of comic books are going to also dictate, because Batman's the prime example of those three eras of comic books on. And we had it when Caleb was here.
Right.
Talking about the three styles of Jokers that reflect those
That
era
different versions.
of how comics are presented and how they're viewed.
So, but to kind of consolidate my thought process is you have DC that was always more tropish. So, obviously DC was more tropish with good versus evil. MC or Marvel went more ambiguous with their bad guys. Are they truly evil bad guys? And at some point in the recent past, that kind of flipped, where DC is more trying to be dark with your Daredevil and your more dark villain or dark bad guys, and MCU or Marvel is more kind of go with the flow, ambiguous bad guys.
Well, I'll go two things here. One, DC kind of, again, goes back to tone. They film in the dark, almost.
Okay.
Here we go again. They seem like they're filming with a gritty aspect. They're trying to film, again, off of, like, what's his face? Zack Snyder from 300 with that.
Superman being
Dark.
dark.
And even Daredevil's got the dark to it. And it's just too edgy and dark. And I get that. Whereas they are definitely taking a flip from their early comics, where it is Batman the detective and Superman is the man. I mean, even look at Christopher Reeves as Superman, which is very hokey and very...
Always will do the right thing and never question.
He's disguised with a pair of glasses and a little curly over his face. Like, that's all it takes. Whereas Marvel has interestingly taken a turn, at least from the 80s Marvel and on, where they're very political.
Okay.
Marvel is very, very political. They made a point of a lot of your split, again, with Avengers being that big split, was very politically motivated. All of their comics dance that line of it's got a political vibe to it.
So are you talking mutants and the or the write up of Civil War?
All the above, and even the way that they do their villains are still got a political motivation and what can you benefit from this? Where DC had for a long time a very clear black and white.
These are the good guys.
Joker
these
is
are
a
the
crazy
guys.
bad guy.
Got it.
Batman is a good guy. He's a tortured good guy, but he wasn't even that much of a tortured good guy until later. Like, his parents were killed, and he became Batman.
Right.
Like, he wasn't the, kind of the crazed, obsessive, post-traumatic stress guy that we know now. But he was definitely more, for Christ's sake, he was, Adam West was Batman in a very, playboy, where Marvel almost seemed to, with the modern political climate being, again, we don't get political on the show here, but definitely at this time in our life, politics are very polarizing right now.
Okay.
So how do you make a show, how do you make a movie or a series that is kind of based on politics,
but still with an entertainment
value to it? So do you think they intentionally lightened the mood with your Marvel movies and lightened everything up so they don't have to dance that line of politics? They don't have to focus on something that is very clearly a divisive topic right now.
Okay.
That's at least my view on it. Is it makes sense that Marvel is going to gravitate away from something that's polarizing and something that everybody can gravitate to be not so much black and white, good and evil, but more ambiguous moral questions. At the same time, you asked, or you're telling me, like, is Thanos a bad guy?
Right.
So let's rock it. Let's go. Is he or not? What do you think?
Well, I think he has a undertone of he thinks he's doing the right thing.
Right.
So I guess maybe every bad guy, if you really want to get into the dichotomy of their mindset.
You like murder podcasts.
I do,
so,
but at
so
the same time,
hears...
I am I'm the same person that when the bad guy wants to monologue, you don't let them. Any LARP I've ever been to
Sure.
is as soon as the bad guy wants to start having a speech, you end that shit because it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they're still a bad guy. So maybe I'm more of a DC person.
So Thanos is a bad guy then.
Yeah.
If you're going off your own logic, and I get some people could argue, because we could obviously go down the train of, well, getting rid of half of everything to save the planet and blah, blah, blah. And depending who you watch, it could actually be proven wrong, maybe-ish, because there is a finite resource and there's a finite thing. But ultimately, you're still killing off X billion people.
Right.
Like, regardless of your motivation behind that, you are still killing X billion people.
Right.
Like, it's... That's why they try to throw that underline of look at how clever we are. Oh, is it a moral? No, it's not a moral dilemma. Like, you're killing off X billion people. Like, for a future that may not do it again in some time. Oh, but he's the gardener. He's going to do it. That's why, I get people say that. Like, I mean, personally, I'm pro Thanos, because if I do get, hey, seeing my work situation lately and how half of my company just laid its people off. I'm not saying where I work, but you could do a Google search and woo!
He means Google.
Hey, we're not sponsored by them, but could be. So
okay, so to kind of segue,
I'm gonna use Bing now. How do you like that?
What did you ultimately? What was your opinion of Infinity War?
I didn't like Infinity War, the movie, for different reasons. Obviously, I think they did a good job trying to literally shoehorn 30-plus characters in a movie that epic. I think some of my biases is the fact that I'm just kind of getting tired of superhero movies. Like,
it's just an oversaturated market for you?
It's a super oversaturated market, for me at least. And I get it. Like, some people love it. This is things that people grown up on, and I'm sure I'm going to get hate mail galore. And again, do a Google search and you can find my address, and good luck, send me hate mail. But I'm kind of burnt out on the superhero movie things. It seemed like it was special for a while when you were getting one a year, maybe two a year.
Okay.
But then all of a sudden, within a 2-year span, to get 6 or 7 movies?
I don't think it's ever expanded that much, but if you're
from the beginning of last year,
if you're talking about straight Marvel movies, don't take into consideration DC. Okay. So I guess you're right on that forefront of DC, Marvel, whatever. It all covers under the banner of comic book movies.
Dudes with superpowers, basically. Right.
Right.
Ooh, Unbreakable. Does that count?
Ooh, that's a good question.
It's a superhero movie, but kind of.
But there's the overlying weird plot Shyamalama
Ding Dong
going on there. But I can see where if you're lumping all of them in. I don't watch a lot of DC movies. It's just not my cup of tea. I don't think the writers.
Focus on that. So why do you not like DC movies?
I don't think. I personally do not care for two-dimensional characters.
Okay.
I think a lot of DC's characters, like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, can't talk. Wonder Woman was a little bit different.
Sure.
She just kind of broke the mold. I did like Aquaman.
You haven't seen Shazam yet, right?
No, I haven't. However,
I heard
Caleb
changed.
did see it, and he said it was a fun movie. It's not a good movie, but it's a fun movie, which is sort of breaking away from DC's mold of, just a comic book movie, or you hear a lot of, well, it was good for a DC movie.
Right.
I just feel like Marvel breaks the mold on so many levels. There's been so many entertaining movies stand alone for me when I look at the MCU universe. I could have gone and seen Black Panther or Thor Ragnarok without having to have seen the 6 other movies before that and still have been able to enjoy the entertainment value. DC doesn't have that for me.
Okay.
DC is just a little bit too much vagueness and not enough actual enjoyable plot to get me to care for that character.
Well, now you go back to how much can you care about a character. Just going to go outside of movies and into comics, which is what Superman always had the issue of. Sorry, puns galore. How do you... I guess Batman's the only one that could have the case of minimal powers, and he's
not two-dimensional.
He's not two-dimensional, but he's got the one, like, aside from usually having a MacGuffin on his belt that solves the situation for some reason.
Or in his car.
Or in his car, or his butler comes out with something. But, I mean, is that the big thing? Is that where the two-dimensional comes from? Is that what we're dealing with? And maybe is that the handcuff that's making DC struggle with their movies, of the fact of, how do you challenge Superman? How do you challenge Wonder Woman? How do you challenge these people who are so, which I think ties into why I didn't like Infinity War so much, is because how do you challenge, it turned into escalation in the movie. It turned into it's a power creep. It's a case of, like, how strong is Thanos? How strong is Spider-Man? How strong do you have to get to beat these things? And I understand you're trying to impact a sense of gravity, of gravitas, of Thanos is a bad mother effer. Like, he will wreck your world.
And he only got powerful based on the fact that he was able to obtain said gems.
Well, he's still a Titan, though.
True.
Without all the gems themselves, he's still crazy
powerful, right?
But, like, maybe the D&D in me is, like, itching. Maybe that's why I have difficulty. Because I do notice, I look at characters and I begin putting character stats to them.
Okay.
So if Thanos turns around and just backhands Thor and sends him to the next moon, but Captain America is able to grab the Infinity Gauntlet and hold Thanos at bay, and Spider-Man almost pulls it free, but somehow Iron Man's able to shackle him, like, who's stronger? Is there a power level? If we're gonna go Dragon Ball Z here, is there power level fluctuating for the situation for the movie? Because how strong can Tony Stark get? Like, does he have a cap? Obviously, I would think Iron Man has a cap.
Okay.
He's only going to be as strong as his robots.
Okay.
So at that point, he's done.
So when we originally started talking about this power creep concept, I started thinking about it because I personally did not like Zack Snyder's version of Superman.
Okay.
I actually made vocal fun of it when I talked about it's just an escalation of how big can the object that Superman throws get.
It could be worse. Christopher Reeve could fly around the planet and send time backwards, though. Don't forget about that.
So, but anyway, so I started thinking about it. I was like, was I more turned off or more unwilling to accept a power creep by an individual character, aka Superman, in a standalone movie, and then I am in a group type movie like the Avengers or whatever you want to call Infinity War, because it's more than just the Avengers. Am I more willing to accept the power creep as long as it's spread out amongst multiple characters? Because you are correct. You've got Spider-Man that gets upgraded from the suit. You get...
that's the other question. Is Spider-Man upgraded from his suit? He gets the suit. He gets the suit.
It's portrayed that he gets his suit because otherwise he wouldn't have been able to survive in space.
Right. That's the upgrade he gets. But Spider-Man becomes stronger because of the suit.
Your opinion says no.
I would argue that his strength, because Spider-Man's strength is kind of mysterious, because he's bit by a radioactive spider, whatever else. His power is, his strength rating is indeterminate because it's organic.
Okay.
And we as organisms ourselves have the concept of hormones and other things. Like we look at people who put into a dire situation and somehow could lift a car.
Right.
So we see that. We see hormones. We see these things. But when you look at a robot, you know that a robot's rating to lift 1,000 pounds and no more, that's all it's going to lift is 1,000 pounds.
Okay.
So when you have Spider-Man in a technological suit,
which technically, if Tony Stark built it the way he starts building some of the Iron Man suits, there's still a level of organic to it. It's not straight.
They're the nanobots. But that's all tech. There's no organism. There should be no living.
There's still some bioware to it. I would argue that there's still some bioware to it.
We can do some research on that.
Right.
I am willing to bet that there's not a whole lot of cybernetic parts.
Okay.
I guess. Or I don't even say cybernetic because you got Cyborg from DC that is very clearly part man, parts machine. I guess we want to get into a level of maybe T-1000-esque.
Oh my gosh.
Honestly, it's fine, but you see what I'm saying? It's organic, but not. Is that where we're going? Of how much of it is like a bioorganic?
Okay, so
which would be kind of weird.
I throw out another character then for you for Infinity War purposes. Do you feel like any other character got more powerful because of Infinity War, other than obviously Thanos?
I would think that I'm trying to remember since I've only seen it once and very recently. I'm wondering if Thor's power crept any. Well,
it did because he had just
got his crazy axe.
From Thor Ragnarok, he goes from losing an eye and then becoming the thunder god, essentially.
Right.
And becoming, Dad talked in my ear and now I can become a transformed god.
Right.
Then loses, obviously in Thor Ragnarok, loses Meow Meow or Mjolnir.
Right. Meow Meow.
It's a joke from the original movie.
Okay.
Then gets...
Spoilers for anybody else that hasn't seen Infinity War at this point, but no.
Then in Infinity War, he gets the axe.
Right.
Which is built by the dwarfs and all that good stuff. So he does kind of get a power creep level up, essentially, like in LARP terms, a transform. And
going obscure terms, but sure. No,
he has that conversation with Rocket that specifically says, I have to have a belief or faith in that I am on this, I am here to continue to win.
Right.
Like, for the lack of any better word, he has the faith of, I am put on this earth as a god to continue to defeat what I deem as bad.
Right. And I think that is a general mindset that I was for a long time big into MMA, mixed martial arts and all that, like fighting and even boxing and stuff. I paid close attention to that. And as a wrestler myself, or I used to be a wrestler, there's definitely a mentality that you have to have that in any combat you go into. Even as a LARPer. Even as when we go and play.
We're always going to win?
You have to. As far as I'm concerned, if you go into any fight thinking that you're going to lose that fight, you've already lost it. Even if it's just a stick, like
Then
just a
we've
stick
gone
spar?
into a lot of fights where we have won where we should have lost. Because there's some fights I go into and I'm going, okay, I'm come to solace that I'm going to die from this modular.
And there is that fear that exists on a grand scale.
Okay.
On a overarching feeling of, hey, we may die, we may lose. That's fine. But when I roll up and post up against somebody in a one-on-one fight or something, I am 100% confident I'm going to win that fight. I'm most likely will lose it. But I will put myself into that fight and give
With
what I
just
can.
a positive mindset.
Sure. Because
Okay.
otherwise, why do it?
Okay.
If you're gonna go in thinking you're gonna lose, then you're like it again. We'll take it out of LARP and go into just fighting or anything else. If you go or just a task, if you go into a task with the mindset that, hey, I'm gonna work on leather, or I'm gonna work. We're gonna do a podcast. Let's just use this.
Okay.
We're gonna go into this. We're gonna start a podcast. And we're gonna fail. Then why are we even bothering? But you and I both started this with the mentality of, hey, we have no idea what we're doing, and it's very evident to our listeners that we have no idea what the hell we're doing. But if you don't go in with the mindset of, but we're gonna do well, we're gonna succeed, that's the mindset you have to go into. So that's the takeaway I got from Thor of not so much of the duality thing. And I'll go with the second part in a second. A lot of it is his own confidence in himself.
Okay.
You have to have confidence in yourself, because otherwise, if you're going to go up and be like, well, chances are I'm going to lose against this guy, but I'm going to try anyway. Are you really trying anyway?
Okay.
If you're going in at 99%.
So then to kind of bring it back to the Infinity War, what do you feel like that's part of the levity of Infinity War? Because in theory, if the series ended and there wasn't Endgame in 3 days, they lost. They all lost. I mean, Star-Lord even has that moment on, I think it's Titan, the home planet of Thanos, where he takes his mask off and goes, "Did we just lose?" Because it's to them as the Guardians of the Galaxy or Tony Stark or Doctor Strange, they just lost.
Right, but to ask that question means that they assume that they were winning all along.
I mean, they went in with a plan. They
And
thought they were successful.
But
Or thought they were going to be successful.
okay, so what's the question? Like, so if you're gonna go in and go, we're gonna win, regardless if they lose, that's irrelevant. That is super irrelevant if you win or lose. But if you go in with the mentality and you go in with the attitude of, I'm going to win, or I am planning on winning because I am giving my all, regardless of the outcome. The outcome at that point, like, you may lose. Like, if you and I are gonna fight.
Okay.
And you look at me and go, I'm gonna whoop him. And I look at you and go, she's probably gonna whoop me. And you win. It's you. I am one to believe that you win because you had that mentality and you had that preparedness. And I also believe that I lost that fight because of that doubt that lingered.
It affects the
outcome. So it's good for Star-Lord to look and go, did we just lose? Which means that they thought they were winning. They thought they were winning, and that's fantastic. That's how you should, and that's, I guess, a life lesson for our listeners is go in with the mentality that you're winning or you're going to win, or go in with a fearlessness, or go in with a mentality of, yeah, I could do this. Like, maybe I'll lose, but don't even do that. No, there's no maybe I'll lose. I'm going to win this. And if you do lose, take it gracefully, obviously. Like, don't be a sore loser, but go in with the mentality that you're going to win. Otherwise, why try, I guess? If you're going to go into something, again, don't half-ass things. If you're going into full ass it. If you're going into a situation with if you're going into a situation with the notion that you could potentially lose, you're kind of going in half-assed.
Okay.
Or at least three-quarter-assed. Kind of go butt cheek and a half going on.
Okay,
so it makes sense. So you're asking about power creep. We'll go back to that because on an interesting pep talk, a pep talk by yours truly, Dusty and Dusty. High five, woo! So power creep and power stuff. I guess that's one of the things I didn't like about Infinity War. Is it just got to the point of how powerful is he gonna get? He's gotten more powerful. Can anybody stop him? He won. Now they're either gonna retcon or it's gonna be something else.
Okay.
Like, that's how I feel. Like, because they lost, technically. Now, it could be a multiverse type thing where, because Doctor Strange saw one outcome being a successful one, or saw multiple other outcomes, because Spider-Man did have multiverse going on, and this is all coincidental that you're bringing up the concepts of dimensions and multiple outcomes to a thing and multiple universes, and maybe they'll start dancing on the comic aspect of, Earth, what is it, 619 or 6? I am wrong on this, and I'll freely admit, but there are multiple Earths.
No, I get that. Earth 52, I think, is it Marvel, or I might think we can see DC.
Regardless,
again, wrong, possibly wrong.
There's multiple Earths to make up for multiple storylines or multiple retcons. I mean, was it what Caleb were talking about, where in one of the stories that they did, an alternate Earth with Batman, where it was Bruce Wayne that got killed in the alley.
Right.
And
Mom becomes Joker.
Martha becomes Joker, and
Dad becomes Batman.
So it's a neat side story. It is a neat alternate universe story, a parallel or something, an alternate dimension, another Earth, whatever. Because comic books are weird like that, and there's no real continuity.
Instead of aliens, it's comic books.
So MCU has done a good job with continuity. Is this where they break from continuity? Is this the point? Honestly, at this point, with contracts being done for a lot of these actors,
right?
With the acquisition of Fox, or not Fox, with the acquisition of the X-Men, basically purchasing from Fox, getting all of their stuff back. Is this the doors flying wide open to do a multiple universe, multiple Earths, multiple series of these characters being in different situations? You could technically do an Avengers with Wolverine and Spider-Man and Captain America now. Like, that is all viable under the MCU. So that is my theory for Endgame, and chances are I'm not going to see it for another year and a half, knowing my affinity towards movies like this. But that would be one of my theories, is they might just kick the door down and say, hey, we're going with the multiple universe philosophy. We're going with the, on this viewing of this world or whatever, those characters got eliminated. But remember the movie Clue? You ever seen the movie Clue with Tim Curry? And
yeah, of course.
Where they go, or the story could have happened like this, and show a different universe where things pan out differently or something else. So they do leave the door open for a multiverse type scenario, a multiple universe scene where they could do a couple more Spider-Man movies that don't take place on this same Earth where Peter and Tony are chumming it up as, Mr. Stark. Or maybe they do a thing where they have a new Wolverine, because you got to think about that. Who are they going to cast for Wolverine when he comes out? Like, we're so used to huge jacked man that we're not looking to see who's going to be the next Wolverine and how are they going to play him as. Are they going to just give him a bit part? Hey, he's in the Avengers, here he is. Or are they going to give him another background movie story stuff? So there's a lot to unpack. And, what's your theory on it, I guess? I don't know.
I mean, my theory, and I kind of hinted on it on Grandma's Geekery at Facebook, but I have a theory, and I don't know if I want to be proven wrong or be proven right, but I have a theory that Thanos snapped himself.
You mentioned that, but then afterwards they show him reappear and get sucked through a portal.
No.
Well, he gets sucked through the portal afterwards.
I don't... Okay, hear me out with why I think he got snapped. And obviously it's the internet, so there's plenty of theories out there.
Sure.
But he sees Gamora again, and that's part of the Soul Stone. It's very Soul Stone hued when he sees Gamora on the altar or what. Yeah.
Orangish yellow.
Correct.
I'm colorblind, but I know it's like an orangish background.
And then he goes to what seems to be again Titan. But Titan looks whole again and not completely bust-em-a-fucked as it is on when they're fighting. Right. So he's like exchanging in that great sunset that is supposed to be, he survived and he is now basking in the glory of he succeeded.
So if he snapped himself, so if you go with the theory that he snapped himself, is that another universe Thanos?
Might be. Like, I don't know. And again,
right, they're all theories.
It's all theories, and I have made sure that I stayed virginal when I walk in on Thursday night, and I have not seen a single trailer of Endgame, period, through this whole time.
Just be surprised. Well, in fairness, they do a good job on messing with trailers too.
Well, and
they did that with Thor Ragnarok, I think, or is it Infinity War? It's Thor Ragnarok, where in the trailer they showed Thor having two eyes.
Oh yeah,
there's always CGI'd it with two eyes, but then in the actual movie you only had the one eye, and people are like, "What the hell?"
Right. So I'm going in completely fresh, and I'm excited. And of course, again, how we started this conversation about, I am starting to rewatch some of the movies. I haven't seen Iron Man in probably like 6 or 7 years. It's just it's so crazy to think that was almost 11 years ago.
Yep.
Where they started doing comic book movies, and now nailing them correctly, and really bringing in and appeasing comic book fans. And there's definitely some fans out there that feel like you, of like, just, hey, I'm over it. I don't need to see everyone that comes out. I personally have seen all of the Marvel ones that have come out. I don't own all of them, but I have seen all of them. So again, I want to go in on Thursday night, and I want to be freshly updated, and again, not seen a trailer. I'm interested to see what they do with it, and I'm ready to see what moves on forward. Because at the end of the day, we can sit here as geeks in any type of fandom and still talk about how movies, or even comic book movies, have benefited us in the pop culture mainstream to make us more relevant, to make us more to make us not as hidden in the shadows. So kind of to close out, I wanted to talk to you about real quickly, Marvel is talking about closing their doors because sales are low and becoming Marvel Entertainment instead of just Marvel and comics specifically, but becoming an overall Marvel Entertainment.
Just consolidating everything into one.
Correct. I'm surprised because obviously buying Disney and all of that stuff.
I'm surprised they haven't done it already, to be honest with you.
But some of that also comes from such streaming apps as Comic X and things like that. What do you feel like the future of comics comes about when it comes to digital apps and streaming things like that? What do you see as on the forefront of comic books in general?
I mean, I'm a big fan of a lot of the Batman movies that DC were putting out, the
okay,
animated movies and such, from the Red Hood stuff, and I'm pretty sure I got one of the Batman movies. I can't remember the name now. I should look it up. It's in my DVD collection here.
Your small DVD collection.
But it's a bunch of Batman shorts done by different animators with different animation styles, and they feel unique. And the episodes are so cool because there's even an anime type version of Batman that's done, and it's a continual story, I do believe, but it's just different animators handling different parts. So it's got a really neat feel. I'll have to. I got hiccups now. I'll sit and watch it with you. Okay. So, what do I think comics are going to go? I mean, it's been obvious for the last several years that paper medium is declining, from newspapers to books to a lot of other things that are seeing a decline. Some cases of resurgence. I mean, novels are still, softcover novels and stuff are still a thing. Okay. And I guess to a degree you're still going to see comics get some, because there's going to be collectors that want
the physical copy,
physical tangible copies. So maybe those become more expensive and a little bit more limited. Okay. I mean, instead of selling them for $5 a pop, $10 a pop.
That's definitely what some of the third party comic book productions or companies are going towards is instead of releasing issue on issue on issue on issue,
they do a full collection, 70 something.
Collection. Here's your collection book, and it takes longer to obviously obtain those, and they're way more expensive.
Well, I know, and actually, it's funny because you mentioned that because like some of the I'm not huge into Marvel and DC, but I did grow up on Image Comics and Top Cow Comics, and I know Top Cow with like Witchblade and Sunstone have just about like a collection. Boom, you get the whole thing. It's $60-$70 or something. You get the whole collection.
Right.
Image, they've kind of obviously faded. I was Image fan because Savage Dragon was a Chicago cop, and I'm clearly biased. I remember for a time that DC did some of that, like the whole Death of Superman stuff some years ago.
Some of that was iconic.
I had the books. I don't know what happened. I lost them in moves, but I had the thick. It was soft cover, but it was like a straight up graphic novel book. And it had all of the whole series of what happened, all of the
issues,
all of the issues in one giant book. So I could see that being the thing of
more prevalent versus your weekly or your monthly release.
You're not gonna get a weekly or monthly release. You're gonna get a catalog of everything in one glump, and if you're really hungry for your releases, you'll get a download of some sort or a digital, issue, or maybe you'll get more movies and cartoons and stuff. I would assume animation costs and stuff has gone down over the years,
right?
And it's a little bit easier to do, but I'm surprised that they haven't just consolidated and become just Marvel Entertainment, because they do dip their toe in a dozen things between, movies
animation.
and TV shows, animation, and because they do have their TV shows too, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all this other stuff.
Right.
So it only makes sense to tie everything together. I would assume it makes the accountant's life a lot easier, whoever the accountant at Disney going, phew, now I just need to watch these books. I am not an accountant. Don't know much when it comes to money in that regard, so I could imagine it makes sense. They might be able to circumvent and dodge things as well by closing their doors in one department and just sliding everything over and rebranding.
Right.
They may be dealing
That's a good call.
They may just be dealing with copyright laws and just, how many times have we seen like stores go bankrupt?
Right.
But they're still around for another 5-10 years. And I mean, Blockbuster's been bankrupt for how many years, and they're still around technically. But it's privately owned, yes.
Right.
But the concept's still there. Like, actually, it's privately owned, but the people that run it, the last one in Oregon, still pay to, I forgot what company it is now.
Whatever.
Blockbuster. But they pay that company to keep the Blockbuster name still.
The trademark.
So it's things like that of like, where does that follow? Like, what laws and who owns what might get cleaned up if you consolidate under Marvel Entertainment. Then you could just look and go, we own this.
Right.
Especially with X-Men and all that stuff coming back into the fold, they may be able to put their stamp on it and be like, Marvel Entertainment owns all of this now.
Right.
Don't touch our X-Men. Spider-Man is not going back to Sony. You stay over there, Tobey Maguire. No more emo, hip thrusting, I'm Venom, crotch shot.
Okay, so join us next week as we are probably doing a roadcast.
Yeah, so it looks like this particular weekend we will be going to Alliance, South Michigan, in Michigan, doing another wonderful Alliance LARP event. So odds are we'll be doing a on-the-road cast on the way home or out there, depending on weather, obviously, if it's crappy and rainy and whatnot.
Road recording quality.
Road conditions may vary, because, again, I refuse to record with bleep,
or any chance of possibly dangerous driving. Thank you.
I don't drive dangerously.
No, you don't.
The truck that was beside us made me nervous. Like, he was swerving, and I passed by, and I looked, and he was clearly looking down at his lap and smiling. So unless he was really happy with what he was given at birth, I'm betting his phone was in his lap, and he was being dumb.
Most likely. But join us next week as we kind of start talking about some more of our LARP stories and things that have happened to us over several years worth of LARPing. We have a couple more questions that we can answer from some of you out there.
And this is a perfect time to get your questions in about LARP. Even if you're a casual listener and don't know about LARP, ask questions. What is it? What are we doing? Blah, blah, blah. We'll happily do a fun little recap on the road, or we will dive into specifics if people are interested. And we'll be more than happy to be the LARP gurus or the Sherpas.
Pushers. LARP pushers.
Shush. That's you know, it's actually on Ushpay. We will be your Sherpas into the wonderful world of foam combat and other geekeries. But, anywho, we're going to change things up a little bit. Instead of our usual quote, we figured, man, that sounded a little egotistical. And really, we don't know anything. But our friend Travis, our resident artist and everything else, gave us a quote that was kind of off the cuff and just really resonated with both Dusty and I. And we figured we're going to start closing out our podcast with it because ultimately, that's what we want to celebrate. That's what we want to do. We want to celebrate the fact that we're geeks. We want to celebrate that geekdom does come in multiple forms. It comes even to the point of when Dusty White and I were at a Buffalo Wing location, and as we're watching the TV, we are watching the 2017 NFL draft going, there has to be a geek out there who is psyched to see his team pick Mitch Trubisky as the quarterback one more time. So everybody's going to be geeky about something. Somebody's going to be, I joked with my mom. My mom's an Elvis geek.
Right.
And
she definitely is.
And all geek means is that you are knowledgeable. You have an excessive knowledge compared to the norm on something, on a topic, and you're excitable about it. And so when Travis said this, I just couldn't help to go, this is our new outro. So, Dusty, you have anything to say before we say goodnight?
Good night.
All right, then. So, as Travis would say, we are all geeks. To be otherwise may very well mean to live without passion. Good night.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Gray Muzzle Geekery with Dusty Red and Dusty White.
You can support our continued geekery at our Patreon website, patreon.com/graymuzzlegeekery. Be sure to check back often as we start to add geek cred levels.
You can send your questions and comments to us at graymuzzlegeekery@gmail.com or find us on Twitter at graymuzzlegeek.
We can be found on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and Buzzsprout.
And a special thank you to Pepper Coyote for our intro theme. And if you like what you heard, you can find more of his stuff on Spotify, Patreon, or directly from his Bandcamp page.